And in a bid to stop state governors from dissolving democratically elected local government councils, the Nigerian Senate is urging the federal government to withhold funds from local government councils that are without elected officials. The upper legislative chamber reached the resolution following a motion by Senator Abba Moro of the People's Democratic Party from Benue South Senatorial District. Arise correspondent Omo Bazwaye tells us more.
The Senate on Friday moved to stop state governors in Nigeria from imposing themselves on local government councils and dissolving democratically elected local government officials. To tackle the state governors and put an end to what it considers as executive rascality, Senate called on the federal government to starve all illegally established local government authorities of funds by withholding statutory allocations meant for them and often hijacked by the state governors. Senate action followed a motion by Minority Leader Abba Moro drawing attention to the dissolution of elected councils in Benue State by the state governor, Father Hyacinth Aliyah. Moro called on the Senate to urgently stand up to protect Nigeria's constitution and democracy.
The Senate notes with dismay the dissolution of democratically elected councils in Benue State. The Senate also notes that in placing caretaker committees to replace elected councils is an aberration and alien to the 1999 Constitution as amended of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The bill received an overwhelming support from lawmakers as it took a non-partisan approach to the matter, pushing strongly against the practice of establishing caretakers in place of elected officials as enshrined in the Constitution. All of them, including those who had served as governors, condemned the arbitrary dissolution of democratically elected local government officials in Benue State and by extension everywhere else in the country.
I think it is clear the Supreme Court of the land, beside the express provision of the Constitution, we can be accused of being lawmakers but not judges. But the highest court of the land has pronounced time and time again that governors do not have power either to dissolve an elected council, nor do they have power to appropriate and spend money in the name of a local government. Local government caretaker committee is not being elected, just like you said.
Some senators called for an amendment of the Electoral Act that would either grant the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) powers to conduct local government elections or establish a new national body entirely that will conduct council polls in the country.
We should be able to amend the aspect that gives the governor power to be doing the local government election. We should try and strive to take that election back to INEC. That again will strengthen the democracy.
If you have a national local government electoral commission that organizes local government elections nationally, you will see that all sorts of local governments will tumble.
Senate urges the governor of Benue State to adhere to his oath of office to defend the Constitution, review his decision to dissolve the councils and reinstate the elected local government officials, even as he called on the federal government to withdraw allocations to crookedly established local government authorities that are unknown to the law. Omo Bazwaye, Arise News.
Thanks very much, Omo there. And we have in the studios now the senator representing Benue South in the Red Chambers is also the Senate Minority Leader, Senator Abba Moro, who moved that motion. Thank you very much for joining us on Newsnight. I mean, you look very nonplussed over this issue. There's nothing cheery about it. It leaves a very bitter taste in the mouth that local government in Nigeria, 776 of them are not...
74.
74 rather, are not being allowed to function proper. Is it a defect in the Constitution or overarching powers of the governors who have these omnibus, octopal powers to do and undo?
Thank you very much. It's a very sad commentary on our democracy, said to say. It's not a problem of the Constitution or our laws. It's the abuse of our Constitution by even those who has sworn an oath to protect the Constitution. And they hide under the nebulous provision that the Constitution allows state houses of assembly to make laws and for the establishment, structure, and functioning of the local government, which is not correct. The functions of the local government are clearly spelled out in the Constitution, and the state houses of assembly can make laws quite okay, but as it is in our legal system, you can make laws in a state that is inconsistent with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, because the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is the ground norm of our system. And so, when, for instance, in the case of Benue State, the State House of Assembly makes a recommendation to the governor, disband the democratically elected councils and set up it's not even law. It's mere recommendation of the House of Assembly that cannot...
Which is like a motion,
right,
you know,
right.
does not have any legal suasion.
It's sort of advisory position that they have taken. And you that swore to uphold the Constitution cannot, on the basis of the recommendation of the House of Assembly, override the Constitution.
What was that recommendation by the Benue State House of Assembly to Governor Hyacinth Alia on the local government?
Well, what they just simply said that the governor sent a report to them about the activities of the local governments, and that on the basis of that, they have done investigation and discovered all 23 local government council chairmen and officials were corrupt, and therefore they should be disbanded.
Without reporting them to the authorities to investigate?
Nothing.
But let us look at what this really portends for local government administration and development of the people. Wouldn't this be one of the indices that is made Nigeria the poverty capital of the world because of the underdevelopment socio-politically and economically of the local government
you can
system?
really say that again. Everybody knows that the foundation of development of any country is a grassroots government, which the local government in Nigeria represents. And so when you bastardize it, when you emasculate it, it's a recipe for crisis, especially of development. And that is the point that we're making here. Every level of government has a role to play, and the Constitution provides for that role. To arrogate to yourself the power of life over the local government system, over council officials, certainly, like I said, is a recipe for crisis and anarchy. And that is the point that I want to make by the motion that I moved in the Senate. And unfortunately, rather than take it in the light of somebody concerned about a bad situation, my governor sending out surrogates to smear my name, to call me names and the rest of them. Of course, I don't care about that anymore. I'm used to name calling and all that. But the truth about it is that, unfortunately, the young man who came around Abuja for over 2 weeks to launder the illegal dissolution of democratically elected government pretended to want to come to the Senate to represent me. So if he doesn't know, for instance, that the Constitution copiously provides for the National Assembly to make laws for the good governance of the Federation and all parts thereof, then of course he has no business.
How would you understand the existence of the local government, where it is very clear in Section 7, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution, as amended, guarantees the establishment of democratically elected local government, their establishment, structure and composition, finance and functions.
Of course.
But it doesn't look as if this arm of government is being protected, you know, by the law generally. If not, why is it that the governors always have that effrontery to say you are dissolved and caretaker committees created, and yet the federation account allocation still goes to illegally.
Quite frankly, I think that on the contrary, is the crudity and the recklessness of the use of power by state governors that is the problem of the system. Because, for instance, you're talking about the law and the rest of them now as contained in the Constitution. Britain doesn't have a written constitution. They have been operating effectively too. Yet we have a written constitution here that provides for every level of government to operate. Yet it is being abused. And apparently because the governors have immunity, they say you can't question them while they are in office and the rest of them. And so they can do anything and get away with it. And the question is, who bears the cat? And that is what I have been saying. Therefore, it is incumbent on the federal government, the head of the federation, to enforce the law by insisting that legal things must be done. So if you create a legal entity, the federal government will be acting illegally, allocating money to you. Because, and the National Assembly is concerned because by the same section 7, 8, the Senate makes laws to provide for the allocation of funds to the local government. And so if you make laws to provide for allocation of funds to the local government, by a logical extension, you are by law obliged to know how that money is used. And that is what the Senate has done in the present circumstances. And then we have an extraordinary issue on our hand, a dissolution of democratically elected local council. And so what do you do to stem the tide?
Absolutely, I was going to ask you that.
And therefore, allocation of funds to illegal institutions
should be stopped.
Should be stopped. So that they know that unless you do the right thing, you won't get the money. I was local government chairman from 1999 to 2006. Funds for the local governments came directly to the local governments. And we only went to joint account meetings and the rest of them to ensure that statutory obligations of the local governments are fulfilled. 1% for education, 1% for that, 2% for that, and the rest of that. And the rest of the funds goes to the local government for administration of the system. That was what was happening. That was when INEC, for instance, the electoral empire of the federal government, conducted elections into the local councils. And I can tell you that at that time, all parties had equal opportunities of producing officials of their various local governments. In my time, for instance, there were about 3 local governments that were run by APP at that time, a political party, while the rest of us were PDP. And of course, we held meetings together, we worked together, we compared notes together, and we ensured that our local government, I, for instance, constructed a bridge across a river to join Benue with Enugu State. And you know how I got to know that it could be done? I went to Logo local government and saw my colleague there, because I was the Agon chairman, and saw my colleague there constructing a bridge for about 13 million naira. And I said, hey, I can do the same thing in my place. And I went to Opoku local government, and because of the need to link us with our neighboring state, I constructed that bridge. That is something that state governments are unable even to do today.
We don't see that again. But tell us quickly, so that we don't, before we run out of time, what are the solutions? How can this be redressed? Going to court, seeking legal actions and the rest, when we know, what it takes in legal process, the time and the rest, the tenure of the duly elected chairman may have passed if they say they want to go and challenge their dissolution and the rest. From the Senate, what can the Senate do? From the office of the Attorney General to the office of the President?
Well, for the office of the Attorney General, if I might take it from there, the Attorney General is the chief legal officer of the Federation, and he has a duty to advise the federal government on what to do in the present circumstances. And I can tell you that one of the steps to take in the emergency that we have now is to ensure that funds are not allocated to illegal entities. Because state governments have seen that local governments have become the cash cow of the states. And so they will do everything that they can to make sure that local government funds do not go outside their purview. But come to think about it, like one of my colleagues said in the current conversation, he said, look, let us amend the laws to ensure that local governments become autonomous, local governments become free of the shackles imposed on them by the state government. But unfortunately, in the 9th Senate, I sponsored a bill for the administrative and financial autonomy of the local government. And we nearly got through to it, but 3 states, unfortunately my state, stalled it because we needed 24 states and only about 20 states endorsed the proposal. And so because we couldn't get 24, the law wasn't passed. But what I intend to do is to make sure that I reintroduce that bill. This time around, we want the federal government, like I am asking now, to muster the necessary political will to have a round table with these state governors to ensure that the local governments are free of the domineering attitude, imposition of ideas and policies on the local government by ensuring that this bill is passed. And then, of course, we will amend the Electoral Act, amend the Constitution to make sure that local government elections are conducted by a federal electoral umpire. That way, everybody will be free to contribute his own quota to the development of the state, because I believe sincerely that the aggregation of the developments in the 774 local governments will translate to national development and will lift us from the present precarious poverty situation that we find ourselves in.
What a shame. Thank you so very much, distinguished Senator Abba Moro, representing Benue South Senatorial District, and is the Senate Minority Leader.
Thank you very much.
To share your thoughts.
Thank you very much.